Dhamaka, Dhamaka.
Dhamaka!
My name is Lakhan.
जहाँ खड़े हो जाते हैं लाइन वहीं से शुरू होती है।
तुमने कभी किसी से प्यार किया?
Hi and welcome to a new episode of Khandaan Podcast. My name is Asim Bernie and I'm joined with my lovely co-hosts Amrita and Sujoy. Hey Amrita, hey Sujoy.
Hello, everybody.
Hello!
We are continuing our 80s Dhamaka series, and this episode we are talking about one of Amrita's favorites, Nagina.
Yes. Welcome to a superhero episode of Khandaan A Bollywood Podcast.
Also, welcome to Amrita's Mind Palace.
Yeah. Basically, I think Amrita's life motto, like mine was, mine is
Meri
Meri Jang. Amrita is Main Teri Dushman, Dushman Tu Mera.
And she's on her commute to work. That's what she thinks.
Constantly. She's talking to us, she's thinking that.
Not even a joke, you guys. Like, this song is on loop in my brain.
Janam janam se tera
Na
mera
mera
bain. Rabba khair.
Let's start then. Amrita, let's get into it. What is Nagina about?
It is about the most naive, the most idiotic man on the planet who comes back from Europe, just general
continent.
Europe. And he just goes wandering around his his Purkhonki Jaidad or whatever.
Yeah.
Walks into a khandar, sees a woman who's just sort of wafting around the khandar in white clothes with like smoke coming everywhere. And he's just like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "Hey, do you remember something?" And he's like, "No." And she's like, "Come, let me take you places." And he's like, "Okay." And then he's just like, "Where are you from?" And she's like, "Do you see that mountain over there? I come from like beyond the mountain." And he's like, "Where's your family?" And she's like, "I don't have a family." And he's like, "Wow, I'll be your family. We can get married." And his mom is like, "What is wrong with you?" And he's like, "There's nothing wrong with me. I've just found the most beautiful girl in the universe and I'm going to marry her." And they do get married, and that's when we find out that she's actually a snake. And maybe he should have spent 5 more minutes thinking with something, with like say body parts on the top of his body rather than
He was thinking with his snake, basically, right?
Exactly. And then it turns out
a mile away. Asim has been sitting on that. Oh dear.
And then there's like all this backstory, which is sort of creepy and grooming, and this movie could never have been made in 2025, but it is a stone cold classic, and it deserves to be seen by the world, I think.
Sujay, I think you can maybe explain the snake genre to us. Like, what is the story? What is the mythology behind it? Because I think this is for like non-Desi listeners. Even I'll be honest, even for Pakistanis, for example, this is some new shit. Basically, like what is happening? Can you explain to us what is happening with this whole...
have you not seen Nagin, the Sunil Dutt movie?
No, I mean, I grew up with this, so I understand. But I think for a lot of new listeners, this is not a genre or a storytelling trope that lives as much anymore, right?
Yeah.
It was something that was very big in that era. And then pretty much, I think there was a TV serial that was on, but...
Yeah, Moni Roy's Nagin.
Yeah, but I think that's for a very select audience, right? I think there's a
By select, you mean like half of India?
Yeah. But like, I think TV watching audiences, right?
Yeah.
This is different from cinematic audiences, I would think. But what is this? What is the mythology between snakes?
I think the mythology is very like Hindu mythology adjacent. I'm not exactly sure how to the text it is. Especially these are drawing like huge creative liberties from what religious text is. But the whole snake god sort of mythology is very much related to Lord Shiva, because a snake sits on his neck, but also like Kaliyadaman, where snakes can be portrayed as deities as well as villains in mythological stories. And if you don't treat them well, if you don't respect them, if you don't worship them, they can be dangerous, is what sort of the
And
mythology is.
this is a universal thing, actually. Like the Japanese have a version of this, the Chinese have a version of this. Like there's the ability of the snake to take on a different guise and enter the world of the humans, basically.
The,
The Ichhadari shape-shifting.
Yeah. And
the other thing you also maybe need to explain is the money. The
Nagmani.
what is like, that's the other thing that I think we need to explain this, because it's weird.
So it's always a cobra, and basically the idea is that the source of their otherworldly powers comes from a jewel that they are carrying within themselves. And this jewel, like if you're able to get it out of a snake, then that will give you the powers of that snake, basically.
Yeah.
And you can control, people, you can do like all sorts of things. So the whole Ichhadari Nagin thing is very closely allied to black magic. So it's never like like Amrish Puri's character in this movie, for example, he's supposed to be a man who's devoted himself to spirituality, and he's like gotten all these good powers by being like a very very strong believer of Shiva. But he is slowly seduced by black magic, and then he becomes he wants more power, and he sort of strays from the path of good. So the saints or the sadhus that you see in all of these Nagin things, they're always like black magic practitioners and things like that.
Right. And do people believe this? Like, are there people that do believe that there's diamonds in cobras?
I actually do think it is, because like I remember being a child, and I've spoken about this before. Like I used to basically, now that I look back, I was just really bothersome. But there was this girl called Manju whose mom used to be, who used to come to like clean our house. And sometimes her mom was just too busy or like didn't feel like working. So she would send Manju over to do the housework. And I would just follow Manju everywhere as she like swept and mopped the house. And she would just like talk to me about movies. And I remember Manju talking about like Ichhadari Nagins and stuff like that. Like it was absolutely real for her. She 100% believed in it. And I think like a lot of people do, actually, because there's a lot of superstition in this land. There's like a lot of people who believe in all sorts of things,
There's the other Bollywood trope or sort of myth that they created through the snake movies is the Ichhadhari Nags or the shape-shifting snakes. They are highly monogamous. They romance for years. Their love exists for ages and ages. And if one of them gets killed, the other will come back in some way or form and take their revenge.
Yeah.
And you have that like in Nagin here. You have that in the Rekha movie, which was Sheshnag. There's so many of those, and they are all a blast.
You should, like people who have never heard of Nagina, what is wrong with you? You should watch Nagina. But also you should watch Nagin, because I think, and then there's like also the old Nagin, the Baijantimala one from like the 50s. But this one, like the one from the 70s with Sunil Dutt and Reena Roy and
Yeah.
Rekha and Danny Denzongpa and like just like a giant cast. It was so much fun. I love that movie, but unfortunately it's from the 70s, so we can't talk about it on this series. But yeah.
It's 70s ka Jani Dushman.
Yeah, and it's great. Like it's
Yeah.
so much fun.
And let's also not forget Hiss, starring Malika Sherawat,
Yes.
directed by Jennifer
Yes.
Lynch, and with
Yes.
Irfan Khan in it.
Yes, a classic
Yeah.
for the ages.
Yeah. So yeah, snake movies have kind of like I think even Tum Mere Ho, Doodh Ka Garz, they had all like these
Yeah.
snake charmer
Uh-huh.
kind of elements.
Juice.
Yeah, it's a classic Khandaan episode, Tum
Yeah.
Mere Ho, because we had Pitu on there, right? We
I'm
so-
glad that there is no Rishi Kapoor line saying "Kategi kya."
yeah, maybe in the B-roll there was. Yes, so yeah, I mean, where does like Nagina stand for you guys? Like, where is it? Like, what is your? I mean, Amrita, I know that this is a big movie for you, right? Like this, there's like you were snake dancing all over the 80s, left and right.
Yes.
What are your memories? What are your thoughts about Nagina?
I remember just being transfixed by specifically that song, Main Teri Dushman Dushman Tu Mera. And I knew the steps to it. I could like dance to it. That, you know, when when her eyes turn blue and then, you
Yeah.
know, she just like focuses. There's this thing that Sridevi does with her face where like her lips sort of like quirk a little bit, and then like she doesn't frown, but her eyes look like they've suddenly turned piercing. I don't know how that woman is able to do that kind of like micro expressions to the point where you're just like, it just completely transforms her face.
Yeah.
Like it's such a mobile face. I love it.
There's no way she could have seen through those really opaque plastic contact
Yes.
lenses, right?
Those are not
It's
lenses;
crazy.
those are pieces of bathroom tile that
Yeah.
they've stuck on her eyeballs. I think.
And
crazy.
there's that you know the way that she just like comes down the stairs while like all the, you know, the line of sadhus are like playing the bean. And there is a way that she just comes down those
She
stairs.
glides
Yes.
down, yeah.
And it's so reminiscent of how a snake would move.
Even
But
before that, right? Because she's compelled to get, like, she's in her bedroom
yeah,
and she sees the sadhus coming and she closes the door because she can't control the beans. And then she's still wearing her own, like, housemaid, whatever, she's wearing the sari, and the beans start playing and she dances like a snake would on her bed. And it's such a, like, a visceral, like, image that we have seen Reena Roy dance in Nagin, but this is something else. She has taken it onto a different level. And then the barriers open, like she cannot control, and she opens her wardrobe and she sees the white dress. And then, you know, you get to see the next scene when Main Teri Dushman happens. And that's if anybody mentions Nagina, that's my go-to image of the movie. And
Yeah.
even watching this movie is like, this whole movie is a build-up to Main Teri Dushman. Like,
Yeah.
everything here that happens, this is the consequence of it. And what a build-up.
And also like this entire
And what a payoff as well. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the whole film right up until Sridevi arrives is such a snooze fest.
Yeah.
And in a way, it just sort of reminds me of Divana, where like you had the entire first half and you were just like, this is so boring. And then Shah Rukh shows up and you're
Yeah.
just like, well, now we are talking.
Yeah.
And it's the same for this film, you know, like until Sridevi shows up, you really don't care about anything that is happening, about any of these people.
Yeah.
And then she shows up and immediately, like, you know, and what an entrance too, right? Like she's very like it's almost like an homage to Mahal, you know, and Madhubala's introduction in that film, where it's just this old ruin and she's wearing white and she's in the smoke and you can't really see her properly, and the hero is sort of following her around. It's such a classic Hindi cinema heroine entry.
It's actually
gorgeous.
it happens. Actually, we see Sridevi earlier in snake form,
Yes.
right? And the
She's a little-
horses go crazy because the one horse is talking to the other. Hey, dekh, Sridevi aa gayi. You know, and they just go crazy because it's like animals see animals and they're like, "Ye Sampo ki Sridevi hai," you know, like it's like it's impressive for horses too, na. So I like
But
that.
also, like, I totally get what Amrita said in her intro. Like, oh, Sridevi just woos Rishi Kapoor in like 5 minutes and he agrees to get married. I mean, who
Would you not? Like, I was like some lady comes into the like mahal and says some shady ass story, but she looks like Sridevi. I'll be like, yeah fine.
And like, not only
Let's get married.
not only Rishi Kapoor, right? Her mom has been against this marriage, and the moment she meets Sridevi, kaha chupa ke rakhi thi?"
Yeah, she's like, yeah, fine, I get it. I'm not gonna argue this. He
Yeah.
wants to marry Shiri. Even her, when he comes in from Europe or America or London, wherever he's coming from, Prem Chopra's daughter is really into, like, she's getting the heart cell. You know, like I think her name is Vijaya, and Vijaya is kab se ready taiyar. You know, she has the fresh fringe. She wants to get married to Rishi Kapoor, and the moment she sees Sridevi is like, मैं आश्रम जा रही हूँ.
बच्चों को पढ़ाने.
I will never marry anybody. I'm done.
Shanti Niketan chali
I was like, yeah,
married.
I get it. I get it. Everybody gets it. You know, but I would have found this movie funny though if everybody saw her as a snake and only Rishi saw her as Sridevi, and they would still get it. Yeah, go ahead, marry this beautiful snake. You know? But let's go back a little bit and let's talk about the star that is Sridevi, because Sridevi had been around for a while. She was a child actor. She's already an established actor, I think, in the South. She's been doing a lot of movies in Bollywood now, to Hindi cinema. She's been doing a lot of remakes of her own work. But it's like one of those. Nagina really catapulted her into superstardom. And then she followed up with Mr. India the next year, which is insane. But just before, she'd also had Sadma, which was kind of a very, like, a critically acclaimed movie too, right? So having all of those things together, and, you know, we'll be talking about Meri Jung in the next episode. I think this is where Sridevi really breaks the template and becomes, you know, the superstar that she is, because she hits it on so many levels, right? She has the success of the South. She's proven herself in, like, kind of like, you know, flower pot heroine roles with Jitendra and Himmatwala and all that thing.
Yeah.
Then critical acclaim, and then leading a movie, and then following up with, like, these massive hits, right? And I think having all of that together really solidifies the star power of Sridevi in a way. Like, for you guys, was this the intro to Sridevi? Were you already aware of her? Do you remember even? Because
I remember like Tataya Ho from Himmatwala, Neno
Yeah.
Sapna
I was
more.
obsessed with that song. Obsessed.
yeah,
I would listen to it on repeat. I would fall asleep listening to it. Like I just
You
it
literally
was,
had Nano Mein Sapna.
yes, I literally had Nano Mein Sapna or Sapne Mein Saj or Sridevi. Like that's what
okay.
I said. I can't remember a time when I didn't know who Sridevi was. I can't tell you like what is the first thing that I saw of hers or like
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
Like, she's always just been there.
Yeah, I think I discovered Sadma way later in my life than these movies, like Himmatwala and Nagina for sure. Sadma feels like a Sunday Doordarshan, one of those, you know, regional language movies that came later in my mid-90s or something. Because again, like Kamal Hassan movies, yeah, for sure, Sadma came way later. But this like front and center heroine, you know, give me my limelight kind of Sridevi movie is what I think were my first memories of Sridevi for sure.
Yeah, I think this was such a big, like, it's all like, I think because we were quite young when all of those years were happening, but it's true, like all of those Jitender movies, Himmatwalas, Tofa, she was in Tofa too, right? That was a big one too. it all kind of amalgamated. Like this is like a major star, right? Like
Yeah.
you had Rekha and Sridevi at the same time, and then like nothing except that was important. Like all of compared to that, everything was like uh, inconsequential. No other women mattered except these two, and it's just like an insane time, and it carried on until Madhuri came up, pretty much, right? Like
Yeah.
to kind of
Like
change that.
everybody else was like, "हाँ मैं शांति निकेतन चली जाती हूँ."
Yeah. What do you think of Rishi Kapoor's kind of story here? Like for me, this is the worst. Like this is like when I was talking about Karz, right?
Yeah.
Like that I didn't like Rishi Kapoor. These are the movies why I never liked Rishi Kapoor. And
Rishi Kapoor is Meenakshi Seshadri of Meri Jang in Nagina, right? He is the flower pot hero, basically. He's just there ki हाँ मैं शादी कर लूँगा, I'll go to the vakil, I'll get my documents, and I'll not get bitten.
But it's also this idea of, young whippersnapper Rishi Kapoor coming from London, like...
Which is a plot point that has happened. I can't even count the number of times that has happened to Rishi.
It's a very Devdas plot, basically. The son goes away to Vilayat. We have not seen him for so many years, and we only have pictures to show how our son used to look like. And Rishi Kapoor used to look like baby Guddu.
Yeah. That's a girl, right? That's a girl that's playing his...
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I think it never really gelled for me, and it reminds me of, as anything reminds me of, Salman Khan. Just compare like Salman Khan's entry in Maine Pyar Kiya coming from Vilayats to Rishi Kapoor. Is like you wonder what is Vilayat doing to Rishi Kapoor? Like, okay, ye kis haal mein aaya wapas? Like it's not... Vilayat is not good for you. Like he's...
many cream scones.
Yeah, like that British food is not good for anybody. And like just these gaudy sweaters, and like he's wearing like a triple denim suit at a certain point. He's got like denim on denim on denim, and I was like, oh my god, what did Vilayat do to you?
Yeah. Well, I think when we talk of the 80s aesthetic, this movie represents a lot of those in ways that a lot of these movies used stock background music. A lot of the stock villains from interchangeable between movies, and like none of the BGM of this movie belongs to this movie. It's like a library of BGM that they just pick up and play. It's that kind of a movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, there was no rights, there was no copyright. You just took whatever you wanted. You can add Star Wars in it, you can add Superman in it, as we have discussed in certain movies that has happened.
I think this was actually the first Rishi Sridevi movie, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
And they ended up doing a lot together, right? Like they had a very comfortable working relationship, I think.
I'm trying to see. Yeah. I thought Gurudev was actually in the 80s, but it's actually from the 90s. So, Nagina was the first Rishi and Sridevi film.
But I think any movie of those, I never considered them to be Rishi movies. Like Rishi is always kind of the, it's all basically her movie, and he's there and he's there. It's like that Barbie meme, right? She's Barbie and he's there.
Ken.
Yeah.
And he's not even Ken.
I think Amrish Puri is Ken in this situation. Like,
I'm so sorry to all the Chintu fans.
Yeah. No, let's talk a bit about Amrish Puri here, because I think that's really, really important. And the more I've been watching these 80s movies, like we'll talk about Amitabh, we'll talk about Sridevi, but we just don't give enough respect to Amrish Puri. Like he is really kind of the magic glue that's holding all of these movies together. And he's such a charismatic character, like a villain, right? Like as a kid, you were scared of Amrish Puri. Like every movie he was in, like, every movie that he's done, you were like literally scared of Amrish Puri. And you see him in interviews and he seems like the nicest guy ever, right? Like, and then we also got, luckily later on, we got to see him in the Babuji roles, and then which really humanized him, and he could do different kind of. Yeah.
My favorite Amrish Puri story, which probably took place around the same time as this movie was getting made, is that Spielberg wanted him for Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
And apparently their production team asked Amrish Puri if he could come in for an audition. And Amrish Puri was like, no thanks, I don't need it. You guys should find someone else. And so they literally hired him like without an audition, because they were just like, there's no one. Because Spielberg just saw like one of his like roles. It was just like, there is no one else.
It was Temple of Doom,
sorry. And he was just like, there's like literally nobody else that can play that character.
Mola Ram.
Yeah. And and Spielberg was right. Like, who else would have played Mola Ram other than Amrish Puri? You know, like there's literally nobody.
The eyes. He doesn't need even a wig.
Yeah.
Oh, the physicality. Just he's so tall. Like he's so tall, he just towers over everybody, and it's
I don't know if he's tall though. It's just the camera loves him that way. You know, he's just larger than life.
I saw him in Kahuna Pyar Hai. He was coming in the Muhurat and stuff like that. He was really quite tall. Like he was like almost like Hrithik Roshan like height. So it's quite tall for like when you're playing against Rishi Kapoor and you have to convincingly say that Rishi Kapoor can beat up Amrish Puri. You know, Amrish Puri like would chew him up and like not even spit him out. Like it's like he's such a cool dude. And Mola Ram was 2 years before Nagina. So you would wonder, you know, like maybe Mola Ram could have become. Why am I saying Mola Ram? It's Mola Ram.
Mola Jat.
Like my Pakistani-ness is like slipping in love jihading here. You know, like. I'm love jihading Amrish Puri. Yeah, so you wonder is like how much of Mola Ram is in, you know, now you can't listen to it any other way. In Nagina, you know, it's kind of like a very similar character he's playing, right?
Bhairavnath, yes.
Yeah, Bhairavnath.
I do appreciate that this movie like literally had Rishi fight with him like one-on-one, and at a certain point they were just like, this is really not believable. In this movie about Ichhadhari Nagins, this is like the least believable part of it. So we're just going to move directly to like, you know, like Sridevi and her two like snake assistants and Amrish Puri, and then like have them do a little scene.
Speaking of which, I do not exactly understand the two snake assistant story.
Yes.
Yeah, the whole
guys, I don't understand a lot of this movie. Sorry, I'm just like I'm gonna ask you these questions because you have to explain it to me because you love this movie. I just gave it up.
Like, what happened in the Punarjanam? Why is Sridevi in love with her and him? And
so it's kind of gross. When Rishi was a baby, he ran away chasing a bunny. Like and this is why I don't trust bunnies. I realized as I was watching this film.
You don't trust bunnies?
Like, yes, I find them very suspicious, and this is why.
We also don't trust Ranbir Kapoor, by the way.
Yes. All bunnies are...
All bunnies. This is an
so
Alice in Wonderland thing. What is going on? Is this a Matrix thing?
So he runs off to like chase a bunny when they're all in that temple, and then he gets bitten by a snake, and he's about to die. So instead of taking him to the hospital like a normal person would, they turn to Bhairavnath, and they're just like, "Can you please save our child?" And he's like, yes, what I'm gonna do is basically a sort of like transmogrification or like transposing of souls or something. He starts playing the tune, and then the snake comes back, and he basically kills the snake and takes the life force of the snake and puts it in this little kid and saves the kid's life that way. So now that snake was Sridevi's snake husband. And Sridevi was like, I love this man. I mean, this snake. And how dare they take my snake away from me? Now, there's also a thing about like the Ichhadhari Nagin, like the Nagmani thing is always in like the royal couple of the snakes. It's never like a Joe Schmo snake. Like it's always like King Charles and Camilla who have the Nagmani. It's never like,
It's snake casteism, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Very much that.
There's an hierarchy to the snakes. So I think that's why the two assistant snakes are out there like serving her, because she's the snake queen. And then basically she preserves her snake husband's body at the same temple. And she's been trying to get Rishi. Well, when he was a child, he used to get all these nightmares and things, and that was basically her trying to get Rishi as a child back to the temple so that she could kill him and then transpose the body and the life back into her husband. But then they send him away to Europe, so that falls through. And now he's come back. So that is why the very first day she takes him to the temple, and she tries to like, when she's like hanging out in the trees and like everyone goes crazy.
Right.
And then she tries to bite him, but he's wearing boots. So like it doesn't really happen.
Ted
And
Mosby
then-
boots.
And then she hitches a ride in his little carriage and goes back to his house. And then that is where she sees a
life he's
mother's
lived.
life. No,
Yeah.
she sees a mother's love for her
Yeah.
child, and she's like, "Oh, I don't wanna take that away from her." And then she sort of puts 2 and 2 together and comes up with 22, in that she's like, well, wait a minute. So this kid has my husband's life in him, and he is now a grown man. So really, it's like, he's my husband. So all I need to do is marry him, and then he and I can be like a couple again. And this nice lady doesn't have to, like lose her son, and we could all be happy, like everything is cool.
I mean, in a snake's mind, that all makes sense, right? Like
It makes sense. The snake doesn't know about grooming. It doesn't know about pedophiles. It doesn't know like that's like, sus. The snake is thinking, this is a very good solution that I have discovered. And unfortunately, Sushma Seth does not agree. She's like, excuse you, you're a snake. I was okay with you as long as I thought you were a beautiful orphan, but a beautiful snake orphan, I'm not really sure about.
But what does she know? She dies in the end anyway.
I mean, she has to, because she was a dumb bitch,
Like, the thing is, it's good that you're kind of summarizing is because the movie also like really explained this very quickly at a much later stage in the story, right? Like he bites him and then like he runs away, the snake slithers away, sorry. And then Amrish Puri is like, oh my God, that was an Ichchadhari Nag, And then like they've already like that's the funny part, because it's like those other two snakes, they're like basically Robert and Bhalla, and then the original snake is Sham Gopal Bajaj, and Sridevi is married to him. So that's basically what's going on.
Because Sham Bajaj has the Mahire.
Exactly. It's all andaz apna apna related.
Man. Rajkumar Santoshi did the remake of Nagina, basically.
Basically, we've cracked the code here.
The common thread is Amar Prem. Yeah.
And again, I need to talk about the snake powers, because again, I don't want to offend any sentiments, because this is like I have trouble understanding, because the movie, I'm just taking it from the information the movie is giving us, right? The snake powers are not that impressive, guys.
What do you mean? She's Mystique. She became a full grown ass Sridevi.
Yeah, but that's the only thing she can do. She can only become Sridevi, and then
wouldn't you want to be?
No, I mean, why would I want to be Sridevi? That makes no sense. But no, she becomes a snake, but she becomes Sridevi, but she also has to become a snake every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, at night. That's how Shrishma Seth
Catches
figures it
her.
out, right? Like Amrish Puri tells her, every day she has to once become in her snake form, and that's where she's all sweaty and all that, and then the snake comes, and then she figures out, oh my god, she turns into a snake. But beside finding files and being really good at admin,
Yeah.
she has no real superpowers. Like, the one thing that I do find impressive is when she turns into a snake, and that's the part that I didn't understand. Is like, is she able to also transform the clothes? Or is there a moment where she's just lying naked on the floor and she has to? Because when she opens the cupboard and the white dress is hanging, that's where I got confused. I was like, wait, I thought she
Yeah.
formed the clothes. Like,
Yeah.
she does not, or she does. Like, I don't. That part I wasn't clear
We
about.
did not get the Arnold Terminator 2 intro scene with Sridevi. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's what I was wondering. Do the snakes' clothes come with the transformation, or is there a
Yeah.
moment where she's like,
Is
It's
the
"Oh my
been
god"?
suit part of the skin or
Yeah,
not?
exactly.
Which was, I mean, I had that question when, the day that she comes to meet Sushma Seth and she's wearing this salwar kameez.
Yeah,
And I'm like, where did she get that salwar kameez? She's like a snake that lives in the forest.
yeah. And how does she know 80s village fashion? Like, what
I
works?
know.
Like how is she keeping up with that? Like,
Where
so
is she
yeah.
making money from?
She's just chipping off part of the money, like that's like. But yeah, what else does she have in terms of powers? I think that's it, right? Because we are talking about this as a superhero movie in a way, right?
Well,
Like,
she is super venomous and she can fight off other snakes. Like, she saves Rishi's life.
when
And
she turns into a snake,
Yeah.
yeah. And she
like,
like
just
bites Prem Chopra.
which I just thought funny. Like, if you are a human, why would you turn into a snake to fight the snake? Wouldn't you just fight it as a human? I mean, that makes more sense. You have arms, you have more things.
Opposable thumbs, yeah.
Yeah, you have thumbs. You can use instruments to.
It's not as sexy though. Like
Yeah.
in your mind, it's not as sexy. The snake can fly for some reason.
She flies. Where did she fly?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't. Yeah. That was just some questions I had about the snake powers. Prem Chopra. Oh, there's also the whole Jaidat Hadapna part going on, right? Again, this is one of those movies where I felt Prem Chopra was kind of justified in his anger. Right? It's like he's been taking care of this tea estate.
A lot of tea.
That's of tea. The whole economy of India was based on tea estates. So
It's because a lot of these movies are shot in Ooty, basically.
So he's basically been taking care of everything of this tea estate, where I don't know what Sushma Seth is doing. She's just like,
She's just
gallivanting.
She's just like, excuse me, I'm fabulous.
Yeah, she's being Sonam Kapoor, basically. That's what she's doing. And so the idea is that they would then marry. First of all, he's written some paper. So the property is in his name, and he's written a paper where I will give you back the property. And then he decides, I'm not giving you back the property because I've taken care and I've grown this business. I was like, I get it. Like, what the hell has Rishi done? It does seems to be that kind of like, that casteism that you were talking about, that like he is the owner because of blood, not by, virtue of capitalism. He said, so yeah, and then the piece of paper gets lost, and that's really where Devi's superpower comes in. She's like with the blue eyes, and they're like, file udhar hai. It's like,
File. Mark, yeah.
And then Rishi finds the file, and he gets this tea estate back, and Prem Chopra is really, really pissed off. He wears a red hat, and he has people attack Rishi Kapoor. And then Sridevi bites the crap out of him, He has to die with a red hat on, imagine, like. It's like that scene in the Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's like, I wish I wasn't wearing this f***ing Oh, God.
Oh, God.
The other thing that I also realized watching this movie, because the movie was massive, right? And I have not watched it. This does not hold the kind of regard that it holds for you guys. I have not watched it like 100 million times. I knew the song the main song, which is the main reason for this movie is that one song, right? Like all the other songs are really bad.
No,
No?
I would not agree with that, because this is the quintessential like Muhammad Aziz song for me. Aajkal yaad mujhe kuch rehta nahi is just that. That song is very, 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 very special to me, because I used to do a lot of Muhammad Aziz impressions, guys. But it sort of
We are learning things about you both that we have never learned in 262 episodes.
Amrita sleeps to Nano mein sapna, and I do Muhammad Aziz impressions.
Yeah.
But it often goes into Shabir Kumar as well. But yeah, Aajkal Yaad Kuch is such a great, great Muhammad Aziz track for me. This and Tu Mujhe Kabul, Main Tujhe Kabul.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I just kind of like slipped through
Also,
all
like,
of that.
Bhuli Bisri, Anuradha Podwal.
I swear to God, I don't even know which these songs are, and I've literally watched the movie like last week. They had no. They left.
Skip through them.
They left no impression on me. Or maybe it was just like Rishi Kapoor being, and there he's there too, right? I don't know. What about you, Amrita? Is like the whole soundtrack such a big thing for you?
No. I think like the big song was always a big song for me. Like I was just like hyper fixated on that particular song. I like the other songs. Like I didn't hate it.
It's so like trademark Sridevi aesthetic that Main Teri Dushman is that we'll talk about Chalwas later, like in the series, but even in Na Jaane Kidhar Se Aayi Hai, she has a Nagina moment when she puts on contact lenses and she does like the snake dance bit, and that's a callback to Nagina. It's so iconic that way, right? That even she recognizes it.
And to this day, really, like anytime anyone does like a Nagin thing, that's the outfit and that's the aesthetic. Like it hasn't changed. Like, the TV show that you guys were talking about, like I've only seen like little clips of it here and there on Instagram. And they tried really hard to make it more sexy or whatever, but it'll never be anything other than like Sridevi in that ghagra choli with the with the ghungat and everything, and it's just so classic. Like when we think about what a Nagin looks like.
Yeah, I mean it's literally iconic is the term that we can use for this movie. I don't know, any other thoughts, any things that we haven't discussed about Nagina? Any notes you had?
This movie was actually like the biggest hit of that year, either the biggest hit or the second biggest hit. But basically, like everybody knew that this was Sridevi's movie and not Rishi Kapoor's movie. Like everyone knew it. And she became one of the very few actresses who could open a movie on the back of this particular movie. And that sort of like set her up to become the superstar of the 80s. It's just hugely important in her filmography as well.
I had there is a whole bit where we sort of don't see Sridevi, right? And a lot of that is a lot of fat shaming. Basically, Guddi Maruti appears.
Oh, right.
And then she cannot fit within the frame of the photograph. And then they have to do this whole bit about, hey, fat people, laugh at
It's
them.
the whole Jagdeep comedy sequence that they have in there, right? Like, which is so painful to watch. It's like very much like, please laugh, and they are literally like standing next to ha ha ha. They don't even he's just doing monologues, right? And a lot of it is my wife be so fat,
Yeah. What else? Yeah, Prem Chopra is in this movie and he's not even the main villain, which is weird for me.
It's also written and directed by people that I have no idea what they've done other than this.
Yeah, so the director of this movie, Harmesh Malhotra, he's done a string of these sort of what you would call as spin-off movies. They sort of pick up things of what is working currently and they will make a movie a year later or so, right? So the only other big hit in his entire career, other than Nagina, and then probably Sherni was a semi-hit that
Mm-hmm.
followed like a couple of years later. But the only other big hit in the 90s is Dulhe Raja, which we often consider as a David Dhawan movie, not directed by David Dhawan. And so it's pretty much that. He doesn't have like a unique aesthetic or a take on what masala movies should be. It just feels like he borrows a lot from other movies.
Yeah.
It's funny that he did Sherni, because Sherni is the other very angry Sridevi movie.
Mhm. And lastly, like Nagina is probably the first Bollywood movie to actually have a sequel.
Yeah. I was going to bring that point too. Nigahe, right?
Nigahe, which nobody watched.
Yeah.
I remember watching Nigahe like really well, and she had like they took my notes on board. Nigahe had more superpowers than Nagina did. I think she even had like laser powers or something like that.
But
also,
is it the same?
It's a follow. Yeah, it's the same universe. Like I mean, it's, to a certain degree. I don't I don't remember it. We're not
I
covering
think it was
on the
her
series.
daughter, like Rishi and Sridevi's daughter or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. And so yeah, snake powers are genetic, and looks are genetic too. And I also just remember it because she just had a much better pairing with Sunny Deol. Sunny Deol was a hero that I would want to watch on screen, where Rishi Kapoor wasn't a hero I wanted to watch on screen. So I remember Nigahe actually really well. And it was also that time where, like, I think it's probably what you were saying about, it was sequelitis going on in America. You had the Rambos, the Rockies, and everything going on, and they wanted to maybe replicate that in India, and smart on them to pick Nagina to make a sequel out of, So but I also don't remember it being a good movie. I wouldn't say, go watch this movie or, find it. I do have to say the print was amazing on Prime for this one too, right? Like, again, pristine. Like, I've never seen this movie in such clear. But it's not one of those movies that looks better. Like, we've seen movies that, because the print is better, it actually looks better. This movie just still looks very cheap and badly made. It's not. Basically, these guys, Harmesh Malhotra, made bank on this movie, and then opened a mozzarella farm or something like that. He just basically disappeared, and I don't know. There's nothing of a consequence here.
Something funny of the 80s aesthetic, though, is that we are constantly seeing cinema change visually in this. Like, we have the Subhash guy who is started the series off with Kurz, right, which came out bang on the beginning year of the 80s, and then we talked about Kalia, Earth, and Nagina now, and Mary Jung, which we will be talking next. So we are constantly seeing the shift from widescreen, like 21:9 ratio, to like being the box 4:3, which is more of a TV format back in the day. And the shift between the two is so, like, it changes the aesthetic of the movie. It feels like the whole widescreen that Subhash Ghai chose for his movies sort of made them not age as badly now when we watch them, compared to how the 4:3 standard of the 35mm looks like in case of Kalia as well as Nagina. It feels like definitely a movie of a certain age.
Yeah. I mean, there's also just the skill level, like the technicians and you can see in even like the clothes she's wearing, the Haveli, like compare this Haveli to the other Havelis we've seen, like it looks terrible. Like this does not look like rich people at all, But yeah, it's
speaking of rich people, when they introduce the Haveli, there's a giant picture of Ajit as the father who passed away. Like, oh, poor Ajit, he agreed for like 500 rupees or something for just his picture being
Ajit, or was it Ajit's son? I feel like
it was
Ajit's
Ajit.
son.
It was Ajit.
It wasn't Bhalla.
Yeah. No, it was him. Apparently, they had like a relationship with the director or something like that. They got along really well.
Die, but you're not shown being dying. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other random notes, Amrita, that you wanted to discuss about Nagina, your favorite movie?
I mean, I cannot overstate how important this movie is in the 80s filmography, because it was such a male-centric decade. And for Sridevi to just come in and blow like the rest of the competition out of the water that particular year. And this happened right in the middle of the decade too. you know, and is like very like action centric and everything. And then she comes in and she's just singing and she's wearing those blue contacts. And a lot of the things in this movie are a throwback to previous decades of Hindi film, like, you know, the way that she is dressed, the fact that at the end, you know, she doesn't really condemn Amrish Puri. Like, you know,
Yeah.
she tries to find a way for him to be forgiven.
Yeah.
And he also like reforms at the end. Like, it's not that he dies repentant. Like, he tries to give her humanity instead of like
Yeah.
condemning her to a life as a snake. And
I love at the end they just have a screen that says "and they live happily ever after." It's literally words there.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, no, you know, mom dead, Amrish Puri dead, Andar Ka Saap dead. It's overall good results for Rajni at the end of this movie. I understand she lives happily.
She ends up
ever
being
after.
a property owner, guys.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, from side Haveli to main Haveli, you know, like.
What I really enjoyed about that was like, and they wrote like, you know, and they lived happily ever after, literally over like a sad Rishi Kapoor, like holding Sushma Sen's
dead mom,
body.
you know, like, you know, she climbed the ladder of success escalator style, basically. You know? Good for her. Good for her. Amrita, any final words on Nagina and where people can find you online?
My final words would be everyone should watch this film, and you can find me on Twitter and on Blue Sky to discuss this film at Amrita IQ.
Sujoy?
I'm not your dushman, but watch Nagina. Otherwise, I will be. Yeah, you can find me on all my socials at 93K, and you can find Khandaan Podcast at Khandaan Podcast.
Yes, watch this on Prime. Like, it's a great print. It's one of those movies that really stands out from the 80s. I think it's a very important movie, although I'm not sure if it's a good movie, but it's an important movie for sure. And yeah, like, it's great to see the start of a star, you know, like the moment where she's been working for a while and then something like she just catches lightning in a bottle and becomes such an iconic, such a big role, and it makes, you know, one of the biggest, most loved stars that we have in India. And this is the movie why is part of her story, you know. So check it out. And continue joining us on Patreon for this series. What Nagina was for Amrita, Meri Jang is for me. That is the movie we're discussing on next week's episode. Join us on Patreon, and thank you for listening.
Khandaan Podcast from VIP Glottis. Papa, are you podcasting again?